Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting WHO India for this conference. I'm going to take literally from what my earlier speaker spoken about. 3 slides I have similar to what Richard had, and that's about the context. The context is that globally there is a dialogue and discourse on what we call sustainable development goals. There are 17 and you know about these goals. There are 6 which are sort of social goal, another next 6 are economic development, and next 3 are on environment, and 2 goal 16 and 17 are on global institutions and partnership and peace. Out of these 17 goals, there is one goal on health, which is goal 3. I'm specifically raising this issue that there is a goal 3 in SDG about health, which reflects global solidarity and agreement that something needs to be done. So whatever is discussed under SDG 3 or goal 3 has an international agreement and approval. Within that goal 3, there are 13 targets. I will not go into the details of those targets, but the way WHO and other international agencies have looked at those 13 targets, there are 4 targets which are on the left-hand side, are mainly continuation of what was being done under Millennium Development Goals. And there are 4 targets in the middle of the slide addressing those issues which were not being discussed 15 years ago. For example, non-communicable diseases and mental health, substance abuse, road traffic accidents. And then there are tools of implementation of those targets, which are 4, which are often considered as targets, so there are total 13. In tools of implementation on right-hand side of the slide, we talk about WHO's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, health financing, health workforce, and early warning and reduction system for health emergency, health risk. So within this background, again, I would go to the slide which has been shown in the morning and in Richard's presentation, but still would like to spend 1 minute on this slide. There was a question this morning that UHC talks about everybody tomorrow should have all the services. Well, it does talk about all the services, but definitely not tomorrow and not free. So this UHC cube, as it is said and first published in WHO World Health Report 2010, is aspirational in the sense that outer cube, if we look at this cube, outer cube is that 100%, there are 3 dimensions. One dimension is on population coverage, which means all people need to have, everybody, 100% of people. Second dimension is service coverage, that not restricted to one type of services, but preventive, promotive, curative, diagnostic, rehabilitative, all type of services. And third dimension is at the cost which people can afford, financial protection. It does not mean that services should be free, but it definitely means that those services utilization should not impoverish or make people poor. So UHC is about all people, all services, and nobody should be getting poor because of access to those services. What is important is to look at the inside cube. The inside cube reflects the reality, and outside cube is an aspirational reflection. In the inside cube, in reality, for example, only a fraction of people, maybe not fraction, but a smaller number than 100% have access to services. There are people who don't have any access to services. On service front, there are only number of services are available. For example, maternal and child health services are more commonly available, but cancer treatment, as we were talking here, and some other services are not available. So only a type of services are available. And on financial protection, we know that in India, around 2/3 of total healthcare cost is paid by people from their own pocket, which is called out-of-pocket expenditure. and an estimated 60 million or 6 crore people fall below poverty line because of health-related expenditure. And UHC aims that that part should be addressed. Nobody should be falling below poverty line. Nobody should be paying beyond their capacity. So UHC talks about that inside cube should be slowly expanded to fill the outside cube. So in that context, UHC is a direction and not a destination. Not all services, all people from day one, but it talks about that we, countries and people, policymakers should make effort that if only 60% people are being covered, then some point of time 70, 80, 90 people. So increasingly more number of people should be covered. Increasingly less number of people should be falling below poverty line because of health-related expenditure. It's about reducing the gap in the need of the people and the utilization and availability of services. It's about improving quality. It's about financial protection. So it's more of a journey rather than a destination. It cannot be a destination. In reality, no country can achieve or no country can reach a UHC goal. As you would go along, the disease pattern would change. The new technology would evolve. So there would always be some gap in the what can be provided and what is available. But most important is that we aspire and move in that direction. With that broader aspect, let's quickly move to India, and I would summarize this slide that India is full of paradox. It provides high quality services, which some of us heard this morning, but at the same time, large number of population do not have access to quality health services. It's a global pharmacy. Nearly 2/3 of developing world receive medicines from India, low-cost generic medicine. But 2/3 of total out-of-pocket expenditure in India is due to the cost of medicines and drugs. So it's definitely a starking paradox which we have to take note and take some action. Most importantly, in India, the health expenditure, government expenditure on health is one of the lowest in the world at 1% of GDP. And total health expenditure is also 4% of GDP, which is definitely insufficient and probably cannot provide enough services to the people. All is not that bad. In the last few years, there have been some progress through National Health Mission. There are challenges that India is federal system and states are responsible for delivering health services. What is more a matter of a bit concern that policy making process, we can say many things, but one of the approach is unpredictable. Sometimes you believe that this would happen and then it doesn't happen. So that's also an area of concern. I would highlight two broad aspects because this is a bigger topic. Two aspects on financial protection and efficiency on service delivery. So on financial protection, this is a schematic of how people are covered by any type of health insurance or service coverage. This is not to be measured, but it broadly explains that if we look from left to right, poor to rich, on the x-axis and service coverage on y-axis, there are services available through public health system, government health program, National Health Mission, and then there are top-up schemes called Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, state scheme, employee state insurance scheme. But if we broadly, not measuring this graph, understand the context that most of the services are limited and what is a gray or light blue background is provided by private sector in India. So through a mechanism which will provide financial protection or will not lead to a catastrophic expenditure are limited, and most of the time people have to rely on private sector to avail health services. And that's one of the reasons that there is a lot of high out-of-pocket expenditure and catastrophic expenditure. So with this picture, I'll return back to this one toward the end of my presentation. Talking about service coverage and efficiency, what we know that social sectors in general are said they are inefficient. This is one of the study done by McKinsey Global Institute, published in 2014. It looked at the 5 sectors and their efficiency or effectiveness, whatever, through the government spending. And it found that health combined with family welfare, drinking water and sanitation was one of the least efficient or most inefficient sector? Well, we can argue about that, but what is to be noticed here on the right, bottom right corner, that top 5 states in India were 3 times more efficient, or efficiency was 78% assessed for top 5 states in India in comparison of bottom 5 out of 20 states. So bottom 5 is 24% efficiency rate and top 5 78%. So there are wide variation in India that states are there which are delivering 3 times more efficiently than other states, which is a proof that it can be delivered in better fashion. Similarly, I heard one of the policy discussion in Delhi, and there was one estimate that out of total government health services provided in the country, a quarter of health facility provide 3/4 of all health services, which means remaining 3/4 provide only 1/4 of health services. So there is an efficiency gap of 9 times in facilities. So there are challenges in efficiency. I would skip this slide. This also talks about whenever we talk about efficiency, there is service coverage, but effective coverage to provide, diagnose, start on treatment, maintain the blood pressure or particular disease condition, and adherence is very low. So effective coverage is very low. There is some of the efficiencies by design as well. We know there are many national programs in the country, and then there are various government individual schemes, there are insurance schemes, there are municipal corporation and different agencies running schemes. Each of these agencies have their own target beneficiary, level of service delivery, financing arrangement, which both in terms of financing, use of human resources, availability of services make it very inefficient. All is not that bad. So having said that, a number of discussion dialogues are going on in India. There is a new national health policy which is awaiting approval. There is a new dialogue on primary health care, engagement of private sector, on health financing. The scheme which was called Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana is being revamped as a national health protection scheme. There will be additional provision under this scheme. I'm not going into the detail of these schemes in interest of time, but I would make some observation about these schemes. So what possibly could be achieved and how we can solve this puzzle? The one simple answer is that we have to repeatedly make a case to every possible individual that there is a sense in investing more in health, and especially by government. I have already highlighted this issue of people falling below poverty line. Investing in health can improve GDP through 1 additional year of life expectancy. As per one estimate, add 4% to the GDP. India can save millions of dollars or trillions of dollars if they can effectively control non-communicable diseases. The disease epidemic can devastate a country's economy or in general, and there is an interest in investing in economy and strengthening health systems, and there is a human value to it. So if we want to do all this, this cannot be done by the technical experts sitting here. This cannot be done even by bureaucrats, because this requires even higher level of interest, and which can be done by politicians and really influential people. And it can be achieved only over a period of 10 to 15 years or maybe 20 years. This is what it has taken to most of the countries. So it's important to have a vision, to know where one want to go, whether it's one institution or entire country, to have a direction, to synergize all efforts, to harmonize what national government is doing, state government is doing. WHO has looked at some area and believe that there are areas which need immediate attention, which include better governance. I really wish I could have elaborated on all these 5 points, but I would not. I would be available to discuss later on. So governance, strengthening public health capacity, providing integrated people-centric health services, financial protection, and accountability and community participation are some of the areas which need to be given attention. I had shown the slide that there are many vertical programs which are running in parallel. So there is a need for harmonizing those programs. Most importantly, the government system which we are facing today, or any system, government or private, were largely designed for infectious diseases. But our new challenge is non-communicable diseases. So the services through those systems need to be reconfigured, And there could be mechanisms such as funding, addressing health behavior, accountability to address these issues. In financing, what we need to do that slowly, where large number of people are not covered by any system, we need to evolve in direction where more people are covered. With your permission, I'll take 30 seconds. Yeah, you have. Okay. Because we just saved a couple of minutes. Okay, thank you very much. So that's good. So in this slide, what I am suggesting, this is a pictorial depiction that moving from many vertical initiative where large number of people are left uncovered, unprotected, there is a need for expansion of those to the services being delivered through existing institutions, so it become more efficient and effectively. Even this slide, what we can see, there is a gray or light blue area on the top of the slide, which is still not being covered by any government mechanism. But slowly over a period of time, in vision of universal health coverage, we have to move in a direction where people have some sort of safety net or social health insurance, in more simple terms, so people don't have to pay beyond their capacity. People don't have to pay at the time of service delivery or receiving services, but they are prepayment or some mechanism. Having said all this, I would say, while I was talking, this might appear very linear, but it's not linear. It's a policy process, and policy processes are never linear. In my opinion, linear are books. So UHC is a policy process, and anything which is policy had to be a slow process. It's possible over a period of time. Many countries could have done this thing, so it's possible, it can be done. All we need to do is make it simple, have a vision, break into the pieces. As a technical expert or policy, to the policymakers and academia, we need to have enough evidence-informed advice to identify trends and guide policymakers. Maybe it can be started with low-hanging fruits, no problem. But most importantly, the policy-making process should be owned by policy decision-makers. Work plans and process are led by government. And my final slide is that there is an emerging consensus on UHC in India. What possible steps which I would like to highlight here are that there is a need for a vision over 7, 10, or 15 years. Possibly, considering that India is a federal structure, state governments in India need to take a lead in achieving UHC, which need to be supplemented by political and financial commitment. And political commitment none less than Chief Minister or Health Minister. Maybe, I don't like this to say this thing, but then maybe focus on poor people first, because ultimately it had to be pragmatic and politics. And finally, it can be delivered or done building on what is already available. There are models, there are approaches, but probably there is no need to copy any other system. It can be found local solutions. And I want to add this final thing that sometimes when we look for expertise, people start looking outside. But it might be helpful if a local expert, and there are plenty and sufficient, come together and work on this and advance toward achieving UHC in India. Thank you very much.